And their heart was like ripped. They were crying from the songs, and they said, Lipa, you left us. And if you bring back your payers and your shit and everything, you'll be back like regular. And I didn't believe it.
But you thought you were done?
Done.
Welcome back to another episode of Inspiration for the Nation. And 2 years ago, when I started interviewing people, there was someone on my top 5 list of, I want to sit down and talk to him about his journey. It was none other than Lipa Schmeltzer. I was in touch with him. He's like, come to my house in Muncie. And at that time, it was just very difficult to travel and do interviews. But I think I got a little more used to doing interviews. And I'm like, I will go to the places I need to go to in order to speak to the people I would love to speak to. So I had the pleasure of sitting down with Lipa. Lipa is very interesting in so many ways. He's fascinating. He's brilliant. You might think this episode is going to be about music. You think Lipa Schmeltzer, but it's a lot more than that. He's someone with so much soul, and he's someone with a journey. He really rose to stardom very quickly, and that's usually not a good recipe for everything in someone's life. And his life started crumbling quickly, and he was suffering, and a lot of people just didn't know the hardships he was going through, whether it was family life or monetarily or just his career. Like everything was going wrong, and he really found himself. And there's this story, this idea of tshuva, and really, really tapping into who we really are, and we all kind of in our own life have that journey. But Lipa's journey was, I guess, on public display. So at least for me to see that, I just from the outside, he has really given me chizuk. And after sitting down with him, I think you're going to fall even more in love with Lipa. Without further ado, my episode with Lipa. We can all use some inspiration to help us overcome the obstacles we encounter in our lives. Get ready for thrilling conversations about struggle and triumph with those in pursuit of making a positive impact in this world. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Here I am in the lovely home of Lipa Schmeltzer. I kind of feel very comfortable here. Is your home like an open house that anyone could just walk in?
Not everybody can come in, but I would want to say that those who could come in feel at home. I lately came up with this line that the truth is we have to help all people. Everybody should help everybody. But since we're limited in resources, we can't. So we help those we can, those who Hashem sends our way. So same thing with an open house. Really, we should all have an open house, but can we all have an open house? So we open the doors for whoever it's meant to be, for whatever the reason, and we make sure that when they're in the house, they feel it's really an open house.
I love that. Would you say growing up that was the idea in your house, or maybe sometimes people have the reverse idea of maybe, not that in a bad way, like no one's invited, but...
So it's I never thought of it. No one asked me the question about if I take this from my upbringing. It's hard to say because we had a very little house. Mm-hmm. So 12 children in a very cramped house. There was not much room for guests.
I think you're making up for it now.
Yeah, but as far as I know that my father tried to bring a lot of guests. It was overwhelming for my mother. And even in this house, I got to tell you, it's not to make this very flowery. I lock my door also. And this is like the little space that I have where I don't want to see people sometimes. And sometimes I just want to be with myself.
Wow, okay, fine. So could you take me back to your upbringing, what your childhood was like? Would you consider yourself different than you were back then? Are you the same? Maybe you evolved? What was your childhood like?
So, first of all, if I'm the same or not, Yossi Green once told me...
I just spoke to him today.
We spoke about experiences. He said to me that he sometimes says this line that if he speaks to someone that's 20 years younger than him, he would say, if we both understand the same things, with the same expertise, that would imply that I was just laying under a bed for 20 years. So, without doing anything. So I'm saying if I'm the same, of course I'm not the same, because we all evolve until the last day of our lives, hopefully, if you're lucky. As far as my upbringing, it's very interesting that because even it ties in even what I just said, that we're evolving. Even in this answer, I'm already evolving because I would usually respond right away with the tough upbringing I had and a little bit of the self-pity. And now, when you ask me this question, I'm already in a place where I look at the more of the full picture, because our brain writes stories. It could be based on a fact, but it could take out only one little fact. I mean, you can have a conversation with me now, and in 5 minutes from now, we can have an argument of what this conversation was.
100%.
Yeah, so we're talking about 30 years ago. We would, we'd remember things the way we want to remember. Really, my childhood it was very colorful, and it was also very challenging.
Well, why was it challenging?
It was challenging. First of all, I'm coming from a house with 12 children. I can say that for a little part of my childhood, 11 lived under the same roof, 11 of the children, and then 10, then 9. But for the most part, I would say 9. We lived, in my childhood, we lived together. And that alone is a challenge. Then I had issues also with focusing and in school, and there was only one school in the shtetl, and you couldn't send to another school. So there was a question of yes going to Chayder or no, and of course he had to go.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was very pro whatever the teacher says in Malamdam, and it was quite difficult. I kind of, but you see, then now I'm getting into this.
But I'm asking.
There's a book, Eckhart Tolle, that writes about meditation and stuff. I read a lot about him. Not about him. I learn from him. I try, and he says that there's no past and future. There's only the present. Yeah, and we also have this Chassidus, but then in the front of the book he writes about how he got anxiety attacks and he was under the train without nothing. So it brought me to the question, either you say your story or you don't say your story. And I think the balance is that you share your story as long other people could learn from it, but you don't delve into it. You don't live through the same moments again and again. And I hope I'm in that place now. Just saying the fact that, yes, I had a rough childhood. You can call it ADD, a little bit OCD, a little bit like a little bit of the spice of everything.
All the D's.
And all the D's. And then I had... was beaten up, every week for not knowing where the place in the Chumash is. I got nicknamed a lot, Bala Chaloimus, the dreamer. I was
Yosef Tzaddik also got that.
That's where I got it from.
Really?
Yeah, and then
Good
also
company.
I was in a table called the Goylem Tish, like the table for Goylemus.
Oh, wow.
A lot like Tishu Kavenbaba, a lot of good stuff. But that also made me who I am,
Right.
made me stronger. There's a piece of art I have downstairs. I can show it to you. It's a frame of a head that has 9 sticks. So I had once a Rebbe that, the Shulchan Aruch says in the 9 days before Tisha B'Av, you don't hit a child. So I used to go around making fun by recess that 9 days I'll be on vacation. So he came into the class with a big stick the first day of the 9 days, and he said, "This is my 9-day shtekela, especially for Lipa." And of course, I got the taste of it.
Oh gosh!
So I put in this little sculpture downstairs, which is not finished, but I put a lot of sticks, and the painful beauty of the sculpture is that you see in the head, the 9 sticks is what made the head explode with colors and with talent and with art. But the sticks are still there. So you can be Lipa, but our story is written when we're 6 years old. I like to use that example that if not, I could have just tomorrow wake up and speak Chinese. But that doesn't happen because language, something I was trained when I was a child, which means the way we communicate with people and the way we work and the way everything is based on our childhood. So the idea is to move on and to take strength out of it. And I think it's a powerful thing to share the story so other people can learn.
Do you think that, you went to art as an escape, or is it because by nature, your soul, you are an artist, or maybe a mix of both?
So it depends what you call art. So first of all, music, before we go to visual arts, because by us, art looks at it as we think of art as a visual, but really art is also music. So music is a huge part. I still want to write about this in length, and maybe I'm not the first one to write about it. But music takes a great place in our heritage, in our religion, in our spirituality, in our growth. From the Shabbos table to Chasanas, to Chippah, to Tisha B'Av. Music is if it's nusach or it's part of everything we do. So that in itself, maybe I just connected more to it because to the beauty of the rhyme and rhythm before I even knew what it is. So I wrote poetry, I wrote lyrics, and then my brother made children's albums, and I was the child soloist. That alone was a huge experience for me. It was out of the shell. My father didn't drive a car. My brother took me to a music studio. It was not Hamish like today, so there was like this secular place. And for me to sing there, to see the microphones, and it was a huge novelty. So that got me going with music. With visual arts, other than the fact that I'm looking back at my chamoshim and I see my little doodles, I didn't draw much. Like every child, when it comes to a place that you think I can't draw, I'm not good enough, and you stop. The art, but it's interesting. When I was 19 years old, I did make, or maybe 18, 19, something like that. I did make collage, which is to say, I bought posters and I cut it out and put glue, made 3-dimensional. And there's a store in Borough Park called Weisberg Gallery or something like that. The name is for sure Weisberg, but Artistic Gallery it's called. Artistic Gallery. And so I went to them and asked, do you want to sell this? I didn't even know in terms of what the art is. I just made this little piece of art. He says, yeah, and I think I got $100.
Back then,
he probably sold his most minimum thing, probably a few $100, whatever. So $100, I think I made him 2, maybe 3. I lately asked him if he knows who has it. He says, how would I know? It wasn't a window. What? Somebody just took it.
Wow.
And today I would definitely grab that back because technically it's my first piece.
How much more would you pay for it now?
I would pay a few $1,000s for sure.
Right, it's like your first.
Yeah, and I made my mother one, and that hangs in the house with a picture of Square Rebbe walking in there. And but that's something that I enjoyed, and then kind of the music took completely over.
So when I remember, I mean, I'm turning 30, but I'm not like that old. But I remember when I'll use the word you blew up, and I don't know, at least in the frum world of like singers, like maybe you're like maybe the first frum singer to actually literally blow up, and just it seemed like it happened very quickly, your career.
Exactly,
your music career.
So it happened very quickly, and that also brought me a lot of issues because the community where I came from did not know how to deal with it.
Meaning
it was new, square, but it wasn't.
They never had any musicians?
They never had somebody out there for concerts and stuff like this. And for them, it was a totally new thing. And on top of that, my style was very new.
Right.
So people used to sing psukim of tefillah, and I brought in...
I remember Gelt. That was my first introduction to you. I'm not saying that was your first song, but like, I don't know, something like that. I can imagine in Scar that was like a song that they were used to.
So exactly. So Geld, it was not only about the beat and the disco, it was also the message was new. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like some lyrics that you should dance by a wedding. It was talking about everybody runs after money, and it doesn't matter, and everybody gets covered for money, and if you lose your money, then people throw you away. But if you have back your money, they become your cousin. It was very poetic, and it was a new... now I'm astonished just thinking back how I even had the guts.
Yeah.
To release
did you think about it, or you kind of just went with it? You're like,
I kind of just went with it,
right?
And I think I was just fighting for to get somewhere. And look, there's a guy, Michael Schnitzler, that sings. His CDs today are mostly Yiddish stories, and his vision and his main gift in that is the way he articulates and he acts the story, and the way he explains it and delivers it. But he doesn't write it himself. Like many other great artists, they take from other people. Mm-hmm. So until today, I don't charge him a dime when I write him a song. That's because when I started, he was on the pedestal that I wanted to be like him. Then later on, I went a great length even further. But that was my dream, to become a good singer, and what microphone do they have, and what delay pedal do they have, and how do they dress, and everything they wear. So, but little did I know that I will go to crazy place where I am today. And then I also had a time when I was not successful, and I was thinking people don't appreciate my.
I want to save. I want to save that part, but I still want to go into this idea. So, like, I know in the non-Jewish world with music, like the ones that rise, at least celebrities, not even just music, when they rise very quickly, it comes with a lot of challenges. I think Baruch Hashem in our circles, we don't really have the crazy wild, problems that maybe the outside world may have. But still, for you, what was that like to go through it? Becomes very famous, very popular, and also be part of your community that they weren't used to it. And I'm sure you're just navigating of saying like, this is my parnasa, this is what I'm doing now, and I'm sure you weren't malicious at all. And I look back and I come from a different world, so I'm like looking at it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is just regular for me. But like, how did you like handle all of that?
So it's fair to say that it was a very difficult ride, but it's also fair to say that it was from both sides of the coin, because had I know, you see, if you want to say, had I known better, I would have dealt with it much in a much more calmer, professional way. But it's not my fault because I didn't know. But then you could also say it's not their fault.
Right.
And it's no one's fault. And everything in the world is like this.
Right. Everyone's trying to do the right thing,
Exactly.
Just different ways of
and we get carried away.
Right.
And I didn't know how to deal with it, because if I would imagine if I move out. I moved to Flatbush, let's say 22 years old, I moved to Flatbush. The thing is that I wanted to stay close to my home base, to where I started, and I couldn't let it go. But I also couldn't let go my music.
Right.
So I kept on promising to the rabbinical staff that I'm not going to make an album, or I'm not going to put in two dancey song or whatever. That now we laugh at it, but that time. But then a year passed by and I couldn't resist. And then I kind of said, okay, I'm going to give excuses. So I was a kind of rebellious, but rebellious not in a very negative way. Rebellious just in terms of where I was then in life, in order for me to get away with a certain shtick. In other words, the opposite of rebellious would mean for me to be given and to give up my career. And that I couldn't do. So
why? Because you felt like this was you? This is like
your
core.
Okay, it was my core. I tell people about losing weight, about making money. It's not black and white, but I like to say you don't want it bad enough. Like if you really want to lose weight, then you're not going to have to say after eating that rugula, how could I eat?
Right.
Because if you really want to make good money you can say it's tricky because everybody wants to think they really want it. But it's possible to say that if I would really want to be in business, in a different business and make even more money, I would give up this career. I wouldn't fight a whole system, so to speak. But I really wanted that music bad enough, stronger than I had wanted money.
So your drive for music, I'm trying to get to the essence of it, was it because you wanted to change the world with the art that you're bringing, or is it for yourself of like, this is how I express myself, this is how I connect to Hashem? Like, which one was it more?
So it's very hard to pinpoint the exact answer if I want to be truthful.
Okay, yeah.
I'll tell you a story about today. So sure. I do now visual arts, and we'll get to this.
Yeah.
But I can't figure, so my mind tells me that I can't figure out my style, that I don't yet know what my style is. But today, Mamash has there's a Shtetl gallery with Zalman Glauber in Wilhelmsburg. You can interview him one day. And he brought Hasidim into art, but I'm the only one from that crew that went also to Columbia for education in visual arts. So my mind is much more in a modern spectrum. But the lack of it is that I didn't learn the real classical way of drawing and, like how to draw a face. But really, art is different today. And the reason art, to justify why it's different, is because to draw a face was done 500 years ago. What's my Yiddish?
Right.
So, long story short, I had my art of delaying for 6 months. I brought it back home today, and then they reinvent, they bring in other artists. But because I'm an in-house artist, I'm having one wall which I put a big piece. And he said to me, I can bring one big piece and maybe one sculpture, but he needs to see it. So I sent him the image of the piece, of the painting. He said, wow. I mean, he liked it. And the sculpture, he said, it's too far away from the community. They will not understand it. And when people come visit the art, they go around, beautiful, beautiful. And when it comes to your art, they ask questions. What is this? And they don't know they don't know what hit them and what this is supposed to mean. And I'm okay with schlepping a little bit the string, but this is already too far out. So instead of me getting shocked and say, oh, what can I do, something that you should put out? I said, no problem, don't put out a piece of me. Put the painting and the sculpture, I'll take back home and I'll wait 10 years. I'm not sure if I'll wait, if I put it in my head in a gallery, but I'm just saying, it gave me an insight that really I do have a style. It's just my mind is telling me maybe I'm not good enough, but really when show comes to shove and he's asking me, so my mind is not going to tell him, okay, let me do something that's more appropriate for Williamsburg. I'm going to say, no, I'll take this back home and it's fine. So do I do it to change the community? Or am I just doing it because this is me? And I'll let people into my life to look at it? It's a tough question because it's a little bit of both. I believe if I don't have any audience and I live in a desert and it's only me, my art would be completely different. Maybe I wouldn't even bother painting. I would just do it with my finger on the sand.
Right.
So we do need an audience. And I think even in this interview, we all do it. Let's face it, we want to have the views. That gives us a sippic to go on. But then, on the other hand, we also want to talk sensible things that maybe is going to make a change in the community. Maybe it's going to impact people's life for the better.
Right, I hear that's a very honest answer, that it's like a blend, for sure. We'll be right back this episode, but first, I want to say this episode is Ilu Nishmas, in memory of Shimon David ben Yaakov Shleima and Miriam Sarah bas Yaakov Moshe. Their neshama should have a tremendous aliyah. Thank you. Also, I want to tell you all about YIT Flix. So YIT Flix is, you've probably heard me talking about it before, maybe you haven't, the king of kosher content when it comes to online videos and entertainment. But more than just entertainment, you want your kids, you want your tweens, you want yourself consuming content and not with these garbage ads out there, and you want it to be in a safe place. And that's why in the Langer home, we use YIT Flix with hundreds of amazing videos, some living Lchaim stuff there. You could be sure that your child or your person in your home is consuming the good Torah value content that we're all hoping and looking for, and they just keep on getting better. I just went on this, 2 days ago. I'm like, oh, they added X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z is not the name of the show, but maybe it could be. Hey, YIT Flix, if you're listening to this, yeah. So for such little money a month, you could be getting the kosherest of content. And like everyone who tells me, I just tried it out for a month and I signed up for a year. It's that easy. Go to the link on the bottom, yitflix.com. And now back to the rest of this episode with Lipa. You're moving on with your music career. You're keep on going. You're obviously getting sometimes some people saying, no, you should do it this way. And you're trying to find yourself. But as you go on, you get bigger, you come out with more albums. What was the ride like? Like, what if I stopped you like 5 years into your career, between say your 20s and 30s, if I said like, are you happy with how things are going? Like, were you happy or were you struggling? As an outsider, I'd be like, yeah, he's top of the world right now.
So it's funny because, yesterday Yidl Wurdige made a chasana. So I was the singer in the Batchen. I usually don't take both, but for Yidl, he helped me a great deal when I have my Lipa 2.0. And I had to do it for him. So a friend, Hershey Weinberg, the composer, today tells me, he says, you look around the room, these terraces, all the singers are here, the musicians, everything is so beautiful, but me and you, we know little details about this guy's life and about this musician's life and the struggles and, money struggles, psychological struggles. And the outside, they call this, it's not a new thing, but in the world they call this the TV show life, So if you think about it, I had a great deal of fulfillment when I sang A Good Wedding, but I also had a great deal of inner pain of fighting this whole system. Am I doing the right thing? Am I not? I had a father who was very, very closed in the community, and he would always comment, yeah, but there's complaints, and I want it to be good, but the Rebbe. And so to see that and to feel that maybe I'm not leveling up to where he wants me to be, that in itself is pain. Because who doesn't want their father and mother to be the most thrilled people with their children? But my father measured me in a sense, even in my adulthood, in comparison to my classmates. And they didn't rock the stage. And rocking the stage, doesn't matter how, whatever, just being there with a drummer and a guitar was already a very modern thing from where I come from. So there was definitely conflict for 20 years. Like probably close to 20 years there was conflict.
Wow, that must be very rough. So, but as things went on, and it's okay, we could take this out if you don't feel comfortable, but it seems...
I just want to clarify, maybe
Sure.
not 20 years, maybe 15 years.
Okay, so
'Cause
you
I
got
didn't
people
measure
in the comments fact check and be like, no, it wasn't that
Yeah,
long.
yeah, and also to be truthful, because the 20 years, I'm singing 23 years, then I had 3 years I didn't sing, and then I'm already back a few years, so... But over a decade.
Wow.
Where over
Yeah,
a decade,
it's a long
for sure,
time
it's a long time.
to be
It's
in
a
that
decade and a
struggle.
half or a decade where I kept on fighting. You can go into the nitty-gritty levels of how much I had to fight when, but yeah.
So as things were going on, you know were still trying to find yourself, and from what I know is, like, you know, let's say right now, like, you're dressed a certain way, you definitely weren't, like, you started getting, I would say, like, funkier, like the Beckishes were very extreme and your glasses were very, and the yarmulke, like, you started going to like a very unique style. And I would say, I mean, I don't know if you use the word, like, maybe you were getting a little more modern, and, you know, you were going to Colombia at that point. You were going through a divorce. I remember, you know, you're posting something. There was a fire. Like, it seemed like a point in your life where just things were just very rough for you. So I guess what were you like during that point in your life?
So... You mentioned a few points in my life.
No, there's a lot. There's a
Yeah.
lot. I know. I kind of like jump. Like,
Yeah.
I want to hop
Yeah.
around with all the time we have.
So after like many times of trying to fight, and after helping myself a lot through therapy, this also took time till I got to this point. I was trying to move on, and there was a lot of trauma behind. Obviously I was hurt by a big part of the community, and today I'm so careful how I say it, because they brought me back in a very big way.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
So
a few months
even
ago.
Panosa wise, and it's almost like now it's 3 years now, but the last 2 years is very strong. So I have to watch how I say it, but really there was a lot of trauma, and for me, I wanted just to move on. And
Right.
So I say I'll become out, and I'll be like Teaneck. I'll be like in Manhattan. I don't like to put
You weren't,
labels.
hold up, but you weren't scared to be like, okay, the classic Hasidic guy who's like, you know, become a tuna beigel or whatever. You weren't worried about that, like, stigma of like, okay,
No,
he's...
that was already the small change, because I didn't have a choice anyway.
Right,
I mean,
okay.
what was I gonna do?
Right, you had no option.
So
Like-
when I took a GED and went to RCC before Columbia, it was a time that I was afraid for my bread and butter, my livelihood. The weddings stopped coming in, and I needed to be able to support my family. So I said I'll become a therapist. And
Why? You like psychology?
because I went to therapy. a lot.
So you're like, okay, and you see how
Kind of,
much
see
help
how much
it...
help it does. And you know what am I gonna do? I'll open up a butcher shop. I'll open a bakery. It could be nice, but it's not my thing. I'll help people, and I went through so much. I'm gonna change the community. It was half rebellious, half real.
Right.
And I didn't even know what you need to do. Like, if I would know today, because there's a lot of Hamish therapists, you would know. You go to you take all your Shiva credits, and then you go for personal lessons in English, and then you go for your therapy degree, very specific to what you need. But I started as if I would be 16 years old now. And I went to school. There was a bunch of teenagers there. It was a huge culture shock for me. And I discovered acting school over there. So I said, I should become an actor. And then I said, well, I'm going to start. Shabbos, I can't go. I'm going to go around again, do auditions. I'll tell them I was this big singer. You know, I had this old thing playing in my head. I can't start all over again. I'm done. So I wasn't sure what to do. Then I got to Columbia through a non-traditional path because of the story they take 1,500 students a year or something. So in Colombia, I realized that psychology, the degree over there, is more scientific, and you go into the psychology of psychology, if that makes sense. Not how I'll try to become a therapist. And anyway, to become a therapist is about the master's degree. So people come for a bachelor's. It's about the learning and to be well-rounded. Lahavd like a yeshiva bocher. So I figured out that they have poetry classes. I said poetry could be up my alley because it's not about the grammar. It's about your ideas, and I can maybe intertwine Yiddish and English, and my papers will be about Yiddish poets. And I kind of obsessed, like a lot, what my degree should be. And then one day a student came in with a picture of a shoe, and I said, what's this? And the student said, they have drawing classes here. I said, I need to try that. And since then, I haven't put down a pencil a day.
Really?
If maybe a day, but I'm saying...
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but I kind of, I'm still obsessing in my mind, what's my main style, or what's my main medium. I made a thing that for like 6 months now, I'm going to count that I don't self-sabotage myself of what's my style. I'm just going to continue to go, because I see people die every day.
Right.
And how much do we have? Like, I mean, you think, what's my style, what's not? If people buy my art, it's because they connect to it. It's a different world today. If people want to have a beautiful piece about a water and a forest, they can buy this for $100 in Target, and you can go in Uman on the street and you have a Russian draw your face for $50. So that's not the idea. The idea is that people can pay $150,000 for a banana on the wall, and or $50 for a beautiful face. It depends who the artist is, what the story is. So that's not going to make it or break it. But there's still something blocking me always. What's my style? What's my pushing myself? And I have tried to tell myself, just like in the singing, I don't say, okay, maybe I should become a chazan, maybe I should become a guitar player. I know my thing, and I can do a little bit chazanas, and I can do a little bit funny stuff or serious stuff, but I have the yellow line in the middle of the road still stays grounded. So in art, I just have to go with the flow and be the best that I can be.
So how did you, Baruch Hashem, you got out of that rut, and I don't know you well, but from the outside, I shouldn't judge, but you definitely you seem like you're in your zone for the most you've ever been in your life. What did you do to get out of that place of just really, becoming, a resident of Teaneck and being in Colombia, wherever it was? How do you get out of there?
So, to come back, you mean for the Hasidim?
Yeah.
So, first of all, in Colombia, I got a little bit more settled because they have a huge modern Orthodox community. So, they had minyanim, and it's really the first time I realized, that you can have very modern people. They come to shachris, so it wasn't because you become modern, you become less of a Jew. Mm-hmm. It's just, in other words,
it's a different style.
Yeah, you have modern Hasidim and from Hasidim, and you have modern Orthodox and from modern Orthodox. If that makes sense.
Very true. No, it's so true.
Yeah, so there's just from in the different ways. Mm-hmm. And I worked with a guy, Eli Kleinman, who, I don't know if I should go into a whole Hasidic story, but it's an amazing story with Eli Kleinman's mother. Now we're interviewing this by Pshalas, your side. Mm-hmm. So Eli Kleinman's mother is the daughter of Reb Shailas Gabba. Shaila wasn't so long ago.
Yeah.
So Reb Shailas Gabba had, I think the name was Fishman, one of the Gabum, had 12 children. The youngest is Eli Kleinman's mother. Now, my Zayda, I didn't know nothing about it, but my Zayda gave money to Reb Shaila Kerestira. Not now because it's famous, I say it, because Kerestira, they have a sefer with the letters of Reb Shaila, and there's letters from Reb Shaila handwritten to my Zayda, thanking him for the donations, probably for the Orchem. And on one letter, Fishman writes to my Zayda, you always help me before Yontiv, I want to thank you, and if you can help me again, I have 12 children, which assumes that my Zayda helped him. He was the Nugget. Now, in that period, when I didn't have much panosa, Eli Kleinman took me in to sing for old people for 3 years.
Wow.
I didn't know the story. I didn't know his mother is the daughter of Shailas Gabe. Neither did he. After I finished working there, I saw this in a sefer. I said, look, this makes me believe in Gilgilim and reincarnation because this is crazy. It's like my Zayda has a couple of bucks. He helps your Zayda, and now he helping me.
Wow.
So anyway, but then Eli Kleinman cut his budget. So for 6 months I was completely without a job. My Pesach program, which I did a show, was a barter. I come, give me a program, I do a show. And I went through my own personal family hardships at the time, with divorce, and I was choked. No money, no job. And Pesach I was hired by somebody, Lipa Friedman, because I was the only singer in the area. Probably otherwise he wouldn't hire me at the time, because I was like an outcast. But I sang, and he had a whole group of people, either Würdigers, Have Fried, and their heart was like ripped. They were crying from the songs, and they said, Lipa, you left us. And if you bring back your payers and your shit and everything, you'll be back like regular. And I didn't believe it. But
you thought you were done.
And randomly, nothing related, Ständig brothers, they approached me if I want to become a singer and if I'll be able to follow what they tell me and then I'll be successful. So at first I told them no. A few months later, they asked me again, or maybe I called them back because I was already inspired and influenced. And it was like almost belief in a higher power with very 3D eyes, because the Ständig brothers asked me, they're not related, nothing with Lipa Friedman. I have Lipa Friedman telling me, I'll help you, come back. I have Aaron Wolfson from the Five Town, through another story, but I don't want to go into a certain gossip. Somebody hurt me very much, that he wanted to make peace. And he told me he's going to help me. And then I have Rabbi Center from Israel.
My Shiva.
Oh, with Ezra Biedenbaum.
Yeah.
That they were going to try to help me. I once at one point told that Rabbi Center is a kanui. You see, when I've been through so much, everybody who gave me a certain look, in my book, he was already out.
Right, okay. So you thought Rabbi Center was...
Yeah, and why? Because of a stupid story with the song, with the chasana. He was like picking a different song. He said he doesn't want to dance, which is kind of stupid now that I'm successful and my mind is in a healthier place.
Right.
I would say, okay, so he wants to have this song, that song. But I took it very personal, and I was so hurt that every little thing went into my, my guts. So then Ezra Biedenbaum made a CM, and he asked me to buy a black yarmulke. And I had this colorful yarmulkes at the time. I didn't have a $20 bill in my pocket to buy a yarmulke. Wow. And Ezra gave me $20, and I went to buy a yarmulke. And I don't know if this was made up or behind my back, but suddenly people started writing Lipa Bal Shiva. So I was like, okay, maybe then it suddenly got to me. I was also very broken. You go through a divorce, and it's a huge decision, and I didn't have the panos and everything. I was kind of, maybe I'm a Bal Shiva, and maybe, fake it until you make it, So the next day I put on a white shirt. And I used to have Sheni V'Chamishi, but it was provocative.
Right.
So the next day I said, I'm going to stop Sheni V'Chamishi. And the Ständig brothers, to be honest, like David, told me that the first year may be very difficult. Maybe I'll have to go work for $300 a gig for like a year until things, because it's going to be very hard to build you back up. We got to go to maybe the offside community, like maybe the wild Bucharam.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of philanthropists got involved, maybe through Lipa, his friends, and other people. And within 2 weeks, I was back to get almost like normal prices. And that almost kept on going for like a year, and pushing me on jobs and everything. And then back to normal, to where I'm supposed to be. This was the first year. And then the next 2 years, I'm like, I know how to booming back. Mainly Hasidic weddings. In particular, the last 6 months, also Lakewood, 5 towns, back to regular, almost like getting, and in a way, I'm in a much better place where I was in my first Gilgal, because then it was constantly a battle. So you can't even enjoy. I always joke with Avram Fried that Avram Fried is Chabad, Yiddish Lichas. So I tell him, you never felt I don't know if I even told this to him, to other people. Fried, he always felt he's doing shlichus.
Right. He's part of the system. This is what they're happy. He's doing the job.
Exactly. It's beautiful. I felt I'm doing something wrong. And that in a battle is very hard to explain. When you can't really enjoy, it's almost like somebody's on a diet and they eat that piece of cake and they can't enjoy the cake because they know that they're breaking their thing, or somebody's not allowed to drink and their 12-step program and they drink and they have to go back, count again. It's almost that feeling. I made a good song and people tell me how beautiful it is, but I have to count again. I have to give accountability that, I don't know, I can't, I failed. And in this time around, No, it's beautiful and it's unbelievable. And I just come from a certain Hasidic session that a therapist asked me to speak to certain teenagers. And they approached me. I made Bav Lipa, a Gemara album that his teacher said Bav Lipa is making maybe fun and da-da-da. And I sing about Abaya. Abaya said that for the Zayt there's always room. And what do we know what Abaya was? Blah, blah, blah. I said to him, he's a teenager, maybe 13 years old. I said, back in the days, if you tell me a story like this, I would be upset at your Rebbe. Now I'm not upset. Because I understand where he is coming from. I just make a change, slowly but surely. So he said, you want to make the Chassidische derech weaker? I said, no. But I'm widening the road that you can be a chassid, you can eat dessert, you can enjoy good music, and you don't have to feel like you sinning. And that brings you, because I never even said it so clearly now, but this interview, like I said about the 12-step program, about somebody drinking, is that comparison. If somebody feels because they dance a little bit like this that they sin, then tomorrow they want to sin more because they're a rebel already. That clearly happened to me.
Just go with it.
And that clearly happened to me since childhood for many years. Now, no, if a rebel says he disagrees with how I interpret the song about the Gemara, I respect his opinion. It may bother me a little bit. I may think, I hope that, like if you get a bad comment on this on your channel, it gives you a little whatever. And then you say, fine, next case.
Then you move on.
I can't. I have to just be myself. And the older you get, I'm now 44 years old, I look at life so different. We just lost Zachari Wallerstein. I knew him very well. He took me many times to speak for his girls. And he's 62 years old. I'm like 44. I hope to live a long life. But we can be busy all day thinking about what other people are thinking. And there's a poem by Carl Sagan, The Pale Blue Dot. And I'm making the painting that I delivered today for the gallery is based on this. And I'm making a wine with Moshe Meyer and Yankee Drew. It's a good summer wine. And the label is this poem. And I'm writing this poem in Yiddish poetry, but wine goes back history a long time. I'm still planning on doing other things. I don't want to give everything away here. But,
no spoilers.
Please, winemaker, if you see this, let me hear. But the thing is, this poem alone, Carl Sagan, the way he says it, the first time they took a picture of the world, when they went up, it's a pale blue dot. And he brings out that confident religions, love relationships, money, how much blood was shattered by kings, corrupt politicians. Remember, it's all in this fraction of a dot. So I want to make this a little bit Yiddish and modify it, and of course give credit that I was inspired by this poem, and write the same thing. Hasidim, rebels, yeshivas, singers, rich people, everybody thinks they have it right. And in this little tiny time that we're here, and to add a little Yiddish perspective, a pintel heat, and to say, but your pintel can change somebody else's pintel in this little pintel, in this little dot. And because we believe that we can make a difference. But the smarter and the older you get, you realize, look, we're going to fight with people. People are going to, of course I need parnasa, and it's a fear for everybody. And I think the first one is health, and then comes parnasa fear.
Right.
For someone like me who's been through a lot, the fear is greater because I'm thinking, but it's also normal that in singing, some people have a life, 5 years, it's done. What is going to happen with me in 20 years? But with Emunah and with self-growth, I know, let's say in 10 years from now, I don't jump on the stage like I jumped today. So I'll be like MBD, and I'll come for a wedding for the last 20 minutes, I'll take my fee, and I'll sing my songs. I'll let younger singers do the 3-hour gig.
Right.
It's part of life. You can have a fear. What about if I'm not here in 200 years from now? It's not a fear. It's reality. So we're not going to be here. So I think that it's a balance of growing and be able to take criticism from other people, but be able also to keep your boundaries on both sides of the spectrum, which means to say, I dress black and white. It's okay. I'm not in that modern community. I can sing there. But also not to get carried away if someone screams at you. And by the way, I got a lot of chizik from the Columbia students, the Yiddish students. I mean, I don't want to, maybe some other students also gave me chizik, but I'm saying from Yiddishkeit, to see how they're modern and they come and daven. But the Hasidic people, where I came from, and which I left clearly, brought me back with open arms.
And what was that Was it the moment that you're back singing at Skver? Was that the what moment was it that you felt I'm back?
Really?
Yeah.
The moment was that night after night I'm singing in Borough Park, Williamsburg, and I'm getting paid nice and with no controversy, and that was the moment.
Wow.
And that I'm singing in Yiddish, and I come into a place and all the Hasidim know every word by heart from all my songs. I mean, there's a guy, Glick, somebody once told me, he said the Chinese will eat rice and the Xhosa will eat chont. So, in other words, yes, I can try to integrate in modern note. The fact is, this is my mother tongue. This is like every CD I'm thinking, maybe I should make a Hebrew song. Maybe I should do English. This, Mordechai Shapiro sings English and Omer Adam sings Hebrew. I think that I'm fulfilling a void, a certain hole, to bring Yiddish poetry to a level that I think, if I may say, was never done before. And I know it also from bigger people than from MBD. MBD never stopped taking lyrics from me since he took once.
Wow.
So, and that it's a huge chizuk for me. And I think that I'm giving to the generation entertainment that is filling a certain void. That it's very important.
It's amazing. Okay, so I want to ask you some fun questions before we wrap up, but I just want to make sure, did we cover all the aspects of your visual art? Because I know we brought it up. I just want to make sure.
So my visual arts, look, we can make a whole interview only on visual arts.
Right.
The thing is, I can go show you my studio a little bit. Visual arts is a very complex conversation. If I have to give you an 800-page book, just the synopsis, like the Haskama and the back cover, I would say that today it's about the story. It's about the message behind the story of the artist. It's not about the craft so much. It's important to learn a skill because I enjoy skill. I enjoy if I can draw a little bit better an ear or a nose. But now I know if I learn how to draw a nose, it's not because I have to draw your nose. It's just because it shows me the neflus haboire. It shows me the way a face works. It shows me perspective. But then when I do my art, I do my own thing. I paint poetry. I paint music. I sometimes paint a little bit about the universe and about nature. But it's a very complex. It's like when two people see a modern art, and one guy wants to say, you don't understand. I'll tell you what I see. I would tell them in today's world, they're both right, because you could see something that the artist even hadn't intended to do, and the other person can say, I don't even know how to view this. It's okay. Today, to really know about art, you have to learn about the artist. Today, if there's no poem next to the art explaining what the art is about, it's different than it used to be. It's not a face. It's not, you have to know about the artist. You can say, no, but I see in the colors, but that's something you see.
Right.
Maybe the artist had something different in mind.
Everyone has their own perception of what's going on.
Red can mean a heart emoji, and red can mean blood.
Right.
So you have to know about the artist, what they had intended to do.
That's amazing. So I'm going to ask you a few quick questions followed by a big question. Not a question, more advice for anyone listening through your journey. But okay, so first question is, if I gave you a time machine, you could go back to one period in time and you could have you could either learn with, you could sing with, you could eat breakfast with one person from history. It could be anyone who's no longer here. Who would it be?
The first one I would think, maybe it's not a Chiddush, but my father.
Okay.
Because I would explain him things differently. I would deal with him differently.
You'd want to show him today.
Exactly. Yeah. Our family is very attached to our father, and there's many reasons. He went through the war. And he never really, he never hugged or kissed. It was
really
hard. Sure, the lack of love is something that I believe will haunt me for the rest of my life.
Right.
But I have to take
Makes
a
sense.
chair like this and sit down a little down and say, this is Lipa, and talk to my own Lipa and say,
really,
you have to grieve for that period, and you love yourself, and you get love.
I'm going to give you a hug after this. I'm just saying. You
yeah,
get
but
ready.
Also to know that love it's also a complex cosmos.
Right. Yeah.
But to say that I can get love from so many people sing my songs, and so many, but there's this void of the validation that if I can make my father really realize how I am doing the right thing and how people love it, that would be a moment I would want to bring back, specifically because he was hurt, not so much from me, but from the situation. for no reason in a way.
Right.
Which I think even the people maybe who hurt me, many of them will admit and would not do it again. But and I'm oichel and whatever. I'm just saying, my father. But if it's other people outside of my father, maybe I should say that on this moment I would want to go back, because this is the question some interviews in paper ask me, and every time it can be a different person.
It's never one
I would
answer.
want to go. I would want to sit with the great poets who wrote the yoitzers and the rhyming pieces of davening, and that they should give me the honor to also write one little piece in it.
Wow, I like that. That's a good answer. Okay, so there's 613 mitzvahs, and like you said before, your answer may shift depending on who you're talking to, your mood, the zone. As of right now, do you have a favorite mitzvah? One thing that you connect to Hashem with, or ben adam lechavero, more than the others?
The two things I'm focused on lately much that gives me fulfillment is, it's maybe very basic, but
it's honest for you.
Yeah, help out other people.
Okay.
And it's hard I can't help the whole world, but if I can make a difference in people's lives, and on the loisesse place, to stay away from gossip.
Lashon hara.
That's my two things that I'm focusing on right now. And then I work on a lot of other things, but this is the things I focus on right now. And then a personal life, without even from Torah perspective, to live in the present, to exercise every day, even for 10 minutes, to do breathing exercises.
Which I told you before, you definitely lost weight. Not that you were fat before.
No,
but
and I'm gonna meet somebody right after this interview, and I told him that I need 10 minutes to run on the bike.
Really?
Yeah, because I know I'm edgy.
Right.
And it's good for the voice, it's good for the brain. You can tape yourself on a WhatsApp tonight, let's say you go home, or anybody out there in the listeners. You can send yourself a WhatsApp or anything, whatever it may be, blah, blah, blah. And then run for 20 minutes, really run, and then leave the same message and listen to both messages, and you'll see a night and day difference in the tone of your voice. Because we're driven by anxiousness, by, I can say I'm driven a lot by anxiety from childhood, but the world, you're afraid of this word. So I'm saying anxiousness is more, but really we're driven by, and the second this goes out through exercise, through breathing, through meditation, we're different people. We're talking different. It's good.
I love that. Is there a pet peeve of yours that you just don't like when that happens? It could be something small. It could be something big. What annoys Lipa?
Oh, annoys. It's interesting. I think I'm going to pick misclarition, it's called. Sometimes they say somebody wants to believe in the Rebbe, but the Rebbe says. Then somebody wants to be more cool, says, I don't know about the Rebbe, but I believe in misclarition means I ask the Rebbe, and whatever the Rebbe says means that this is what God wants. So you ask me the question, the first thing that comes to mind, what annoys me the most is being not understood. And this goes in real life issues, or this can go in an easy thing when somebody feels I didn't give them attention by a wedding. And I'm thinking, don't they see that I need to prepare? I'm nervous. I'm going on the stage in a minute, and I can't do this now. Or why didn't you call me back? Don't they realize I'm saving my voice? I'm even hoarse now. I finished. The word is waiting till 4 in the morning.
Wow.
I'm singing tomorrow for the Pshalik Studio outside. I'm overworked. So don't you see that? So to feel not understood, like in friendships, you would like. Sometimes I would feel like I would pay, I don't know, whatever, a sum of money, that this person should just understand me. If they can really see that I don't mean any,
right,
to feel understood. Now we can go in, psychology has a million highways. You can say that this in itself needs to be worked on, because I shouldn't need anybody's validation, and I shouldn't be codependent on anybody.
But you're human.
Exactly,
Yeah.
we're human.
We're human. What's the worst advice you've ever received?
Wow. I come up with something, but I'm thinking maybe it's just cheesy almost to sound nice. I'm not sure.
It's okay.
I'll tell it to you, but I'm just saying that I'm not sure how real that is, because most of the answers are very real. So,
which, by the way, I've interviewed, I don't know, 80 to 100 people. You're maybe the most honest answerer that I've ever had.
See, this gives me great validation.
No, but really, I've asked a lot of people questions, and I see you going like, hold on, like I want to be extra truthful. Not that I had any liars on, but like you're so conscious about being so emistic. It's very interesting.
And the schar I'm getting for this is that I never have to think twice that I'm going to contradict myself if people put two interviews together. You said the New York Times sometimes have fact checkers and they go back to interviews.
Right.
You see, that's why I was even careful when I said 20 years. I said,
right,
no, it's
you
not
went
20
back.
years.
You're like, yeah, 15.
So I said could be 10.
Right,
15,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So because you're being truthful with yourself, you could say you made a mistake. You know, I said, I don't know if it's appropriate to say this, but it's an open world, I'll say it. President Trump, before he was president, there was a shtickle story, and he came out and he said, I made a mistake. And somebody who was only standing next to him, wasn't even part of the story, lost his job. The Musahaskel in this, the learning experience is, the other one bent down, didn't say the truth, was shy, lost the job. The other one owned it and said, I'm human, I made a mistake, this is what I did, I'm sorry, and you know, and regardless if you agree with him as president or not, he became president.
Wow.
So, being truthful, owning up to what you did, is the best advice. And so, I think I even didn't get to
the worst advice.
The end, the worst advice. So the worst advice, I think, was to fight back. And the last few years, this didn't have to happen. But back in the days, all the good people who came and say, no, tell him like this, and no, and tell him no. And they wouldn't have done the same thing. And they would never have stood up like this, but they used me to go and do, to really, you know, not to take this advice from people. When someone tells you advice, think for a second, would they have done the same thing that I tell you not to do? And when I want to give advice to someone, I want to give advice that I would have done.
I love that. My last question is like this. So someone listening, you've gone through a lot, and the Mir Hashem, you should have a lot more experiences, only good experiences in your life. You should live to 120. But someone going through a hardship now, they're trying to find themselves, and they didn't have the schus yet of getting to where you got, of like returning home and finding yourself. What advice, what encouragement would you give to them?
To use positive reinforcement in their own spiritual growth, which means positive reinforcement is not my Yiddish. Yeah? So let's say, it's the third time I'm mentioning diet, maybe I'm also struggling with eating cakes and stuff.
It's on your mind. You think of regular.
So let's say I like farina in the morning, but let's say it's not healthy, it has a lot of sugar. So I used to fill up a big cup of farina, and now I'll take a little bit less. After 10 days, take a little bit less. You get a positive reinforcement that you can do it. Next, you can take a little bit less. So everybody has, I think, some little thing that they could win. And if they win this one thing and they keep on focusing, you see the Chazal says, Sir meru vasei toiv. Go away from the bad and focus on the good. I say, if I may, I'm starting with the second half of the posik. First, I try to do good, and I'm not focusing on the little bad things I've done. Then, it will happen that, in retrospect, I'll give myself positive reinforcement. I have this win, this little win, this little win. It will expand your horizon and positivity that you can grow and you can do it.
Well, Lipa, I think there's a lot of singers out there, very beautiful singers, but I think you're very unique, that you're not just a singer, you truly are an artist. And thank you for being so authentic and continuing to, we see it in your art. I see it in your art, whether it's music or the visuals or whatever you're doing. We see you putting yourself out there, and thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Now let me show you a little bit of the art.
Yeah. Can I give you a hug first, though?
Oh, please.
Let's do it.
Let's hug it out.
Let's go. Thank you so much for listening and watching this episode. And you know, it's interesting. When I was talking to Lipa about like coming to his house, he's like we just instantly became friends. Nothing that I did. He's that personality. He's like, oh, I'm working on a poem, and like he literally sent it to me, and I'm like, he's like, can you help me with that? I'm like, yeah, sure. And like we were just talking like we knew each other for the past I don't know, 30 years. And I think that's who he is. Like, his home was so inviting. Obviously, don't just show up to his home if you're not invited. But if you are invited, you'll feel that, like, yeah, he's like, my house is your house. And I really felt that there. And I was so comfortable. And yeah, he really has a beautiful journey. And, he's not finished. Like, none of us are finished. And, I'm curious to see what the next step and the next stages he goes in. Yeah, he's really fascinating, and he's really putting out a lot of beautiful music. And I don't want to say he's old, but I won't say he's young. But you see, I see him by weddings, and like, he really gives his energy and his heart and his soul to what he does and to what he believes in, and he's really, really an emistic person. And so check out on Living Lchaim's YouTube channel, where I have a little other project going on with Lipa. It's a video. And we get a little tour of what he's up to. So get ready for that. It'll be out soon. So be subscribed to see that. And if you didn't check out YIT Flix yet, go check them out. The link's on the bottom. And we have so many more incredible episodes. I have so many ready to go. So every Motzei Shabbos is the audio. Every Tuesday is the video. Please subscribe if you haven't. Rate us 5 stars. Every time you do that, I go... For those who are listening, I gave myself a high five. Yeah, it's pretty pathetic, but think about that. You know how many 5 stars I get, and people walking by are like, "What is he doing?" Yeah, that's the reason you should be giving it to me. Please help support us with the 5 stars. Share this episode with friends and family if you think they would love to hear Lipa's journey. Until next time, you're part of the nation of inspiration. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Lchaim, living Lchaim.